Hey. So, been making some progress on that thing I was talking about. And I have a name for it. This is MikeMike, or micro macro. So, MM I think is a good way of doing it, and MikeMike is pretty easy. Plus you get Mike recording. Mike, red means recording. So just plugging that into your computer. Just plug this upper one, the one on top. Just plugging that into your computer, and also like USB MINI MASTERRACE. Come on, micro is bad. USB Type-C is kind of overkill. It's fine, it's reversible and all that, but it's just kind of overkill for this. Those USB micro connectors just get worn out too fast. They're too easy to bust off. Anyways, it's a ProMicro, and the amount of features you can get, input building features that you can get just from plugging a ProMicro straight into your computer with no additional hardware is pretty impressive. That said, it's probably going to need, it needs buttons, and you can attach some buttons to the sides of it, because you want to be able to have a physical activation of it without having to have a, what's it called? Without having to do a, that's an interesting idea. You want to be able to physically activate it without having to interface with the, or use the serial interface, because the serial interface is going to be, for programming it and for modifying the program that's built into it. And I realized this morning that what I was doing was basically the same thing as the MIDI device. I was pushing the programming closer to the user side, or closer to the computing side, so that there was less compiling necessary. I made the interface on the, I moved the interface to the other side so that it's on the computer side. It's easier for you to just hop into it. And then, you don't need additional hardware. You don't need a screen, you don't need a keyboard, you don't need a pointing device built into it, so that you can, on that little thing, try to reproduce macros and record things. Instead, you just have a full serial-based interface that you can say, make a mouse click. Okay, where do you want a mouse click? Well, I want to move the mouse to this position. Okay, mouse move, I should say. Alright, well, here's the buttons to press to move the mouse, and you press the buttons in the serial terminal and your mouse moves, and you navigate it to where you want it to go, and you hit enter. And there you go, that's your mouse move. It says, okay, recorded that action. What do you want to do after you move the mouse there? Well, I want to left-click drag. Okay, left-click drag started. And then I want to move my mouse to this position. Okay, record where you want the position to be. Okay, and now release all mouse buttons. Okay, release. And you can build the macro like that just using the serial interface. So you don't need the display, you don't need the additional inputs, and then essentially your computer is a dumb terminal logging into this thing, which is, again, hilariously enough, also connecting to your computer and operating as a keyboard and mouse. So you're able to build macros on that thing, and all you have to do is plug it in. I would love to be able to figure out a way to accomplish some type of capacitive leading or capacitive interface on there, so that you can just like pinch the circuit board and it'll kick off. But I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if the signal's clean enough on it or what. I think it needs to have hardware in order to do any kind of capacitive draining. And the Harris Hawk, it needs to have additional hardware. It needs to have like a sink for the voltage to build up, so that you have something of a capacitor built into the board, and then when you touch it, you affect that capacitance. But anyways, there needs to be a little tiny PCB that sits on top of it that does just like has some buttons on it. I'll probably do a tiny version with 2 buttons and a version with 6, either 6 or 9 buttons. I'm not sure yet. 9 buttons would probably get me pretty far. But I also want to keep some of those buttons available for LEDs, indicator lights. That way, if you run it headless, you know, you plug it into one computer, you connect to it via serial interface, you build the macros, or you connect to a workstation or an operator station and plug it in. You set up the PuTTY into the serial terminal or whatever. You program it on that computer so that you know it's going to do what you want it to do, and then say, all right, save those macros, assign that macro to button 1 and assign that macro to button 2, and, you know, save them to EEPROM, and then unplug it, remove PuTTY, and just let it sit there and let you press the buttons on it, so that it becomes a piece of equipment rather than a device that you need to interface with in some complicated scheme. Although I don't think it's that complicated, but whatever. So the other thing is the speed at which you can build the macros is impressive, because you'll be able to just build the macros directly on your computer, pretty much live, by, you know, moving the mouse around live on your screen so that you can find out what zone you want it to be in when it clicks. Yeah. And then you can replay those macros on your computer. Yeah, but see, that's the thing, is when it's plugged into a computer, you don't want to be looking at a serial interface when you kick off the macro. You want to have like a timeout that says activate this macro in 30 seconds and then repeat it and just keep going in a loop until I unplug it, maybe, or something, I don't know. And then you can get yourself situated on the program that you want it to be on, and then it'll do the thing it's doing repeatedly. So there is a little bit, yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing about the interface, is if it's entirely in the serial terminal, then your output is on the same place that you're putting your input. So having those external buttons is going to enable the box to work a lot better. And then you'll still have space to record. At this point, I'm figuring 20 macros, although I haven't really done the math on it. And then you can move those macros around, you know, assign macro 18 to button 1 and assign macro 15 to button 2. The dog was as big as she was. So I think there's this is cool, because it is the way I normally do this stuff, which is I get annoyed with the process, and I'm picking up, we're a little short-staffed at work right now, so I'm picking up some additional work, additional duties and responsibilities, and they have a lot of repetitive tasks in them, and I'm like, man, I wish MikeMike was finished. And that's what's driving me forward to work on this stuff, because I don't like it. I don't like repetitive work. So before the PCBs arrive, you know, I can design it. It'll probably take about an hour to design it. I could actually do that work. You know, this is somewhat open. I could probably do that work on a live stream, actually. Normally all of my coding work is from customer sensitive data, but this would be something. We could have an actual live stream that you can actually read. It makes it a little hard to navigate for me, but that's all right. It's the experience we're after. Temperature dropped pretty badly, or pretty heavily yesterday night, or the night before last night, I guess. So animals are extra active, running around. trying to fatten up. I should be helping them fatten up. So let's see. There are some... I'm also trying to make this entirely in Arduino, or at least Arduino compatible code. I'm using the Arduino libraries. You know, any references you find are going to be accurate to what Arduino's output is. It's actually not going to use the USB HID spec, which I think is fine. At first I thought, and I think I have a vlag talking about this, where it just made no sense to not use the USB HID spec and instead to use an ASCII table. But it's about accessibility. And in this case, accessibility is a goal of mine. So it makes perfect sense that this would be something that people are allowed to work with easily. Plus, I'm not handling the translation. It doesn't really matter, actually. The only thing that might get weird is if the Arduino libraries are too heavy for me to build anything that complex, and then I have to pare it down. Because, you know, Arduino isn't light. It's just, it has a lot of additional abstractions to make it more accessible, easier to work with, and other redundancies. But the point is, it's there for a reason, and as long as I don't run up against any of those limits, which I don't really expect to, all of the code I added last night for handling the display, the output, and some menuing, added like 4% of the total usage, which brought it up to 24%, which is just fine. I had a lot in place at 20 with all the libraries being active, so I don't think my additional bits of code are going to be a problem. There is some... I would like to do the menuing in a very, you know, nice, elegant way, but frankly, I just need to get this MikeMike working properly right now, because it is a direct use to me. And that's, you know, traditionally, that's the way I get projects done, you know. I rush to something that is usable, and once it's usable, I'm like, okay, now I can use it. And then I decide, you know, well, it would be cool if we could add this feature, and then then the refinement works from there, from the actual utility, where the refinement grows from actually using the device rather than imagining future features that would be useful or might be helpful, and then building them in, trying to shoehorn them in, which would probably be a path to using up all the SRAM on the device. Because it's a lowly ProMicro is all it is, and it's very capable. So as long as I don't overload it. So I hope that, and most of us, you know, chances are, if you're listening to this, you've already got a ProMicro. What's going on up there? Chances are you've already got a ProMicro lying around, and then you plug it in, you program it, you open the serial interface, and hey presto, you've got yourself a lovely macro building device that can help you get more work done for free for stuff you already had. Pretty neat.